Hey guys, so you ready for today's January 15, 2023, 5 p.m. Central Time. Impact and likelihood of China invading Taiwan. Wanted to do a post on this, but it was way too much to type. And there's a hesitation on locals, which is really irritating once you get to like a certain part, like further down. And it doesn't take very long to reach that character max. So anyway, the likelihood obviously is opinion, and I like to know your guys' opinion as always. The impact is pretty intense though. So I listen to Fox Business and Fox Business pops up on my phone and stuff. And I pretty much stay there nowadays versus watching or listening to or reading Fox News because I basically filter out all the bullshit that has to do with, like, I don't know, former Prince Harry touching his junk and talking about it. And just stupid news stories. So Fox Business is really where I focus these days, looking at the markets and all that shit. So anyway, with the Chinese shit, because of what Congress passed this past week, House passes bill banning oil sales from Strategic Petroleum Reserve to China and companies it controls. This is interesting because I saw some of this on the House floor debating it, and it does actually explain in here pretty well in a few sentences why some of the people are against it. It says most of the Democratic lawmakers put, like, every Republican voted for it, and then quite a few Democrats went in favor. It was 331 to 97. Democrat lawmakers opposed to the measure argued it should broaden to include countries like North Korea and Russia, which I'm wondering how often we do that anyway. Beside the point, this has the Senate where it faces an uncertain fate, which is very interesting to even think about, because this should kind of be like a hole-in-one, like obvious we should not be doing this. There's so much politics that runs around China that it's nuts. Especially with this, obviously, this White House, there's some serious conflicts of interest there. But besides that, even people in Congress and globally, you know, they want to become a superpower. They're pretty much, you know, not close to, but I mean, they're up there. If you want to talk about an economy that's doing, you know, booming against ours kind of thing, competitive wise, they have a huge population. They control a lot of shit. They're very, at least Xing is very aggressive, if you will, militarily, so physically, as well as policy-wise and all kinds of stuff. So China's a very interesting situation against the United States. And on top of the fact, isn't most of our debt like owned by China, which is the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard. I don't understand. And I never have, and I honestly never want to know, because it sounds like it'd blow my brain up to the point of pissing me off, and also make zero sense on how the United States borrows money, especially to the debt we're at now, which is what, $31 trillion, to run our country. And somehow we are giving Ukraine all this money. We give all these other countries money for stupid shit. Like, I think it was, what country was it? One of the Middle East countries, I believe it is. We just sent recently like a couple, quite a few million, if not $1 billion, to protect their own border for some reason. Like, I mean, we're just throwing money out to everybody. We're the piggy bank, but yet we're borrowing that money to do that. So it's not like we're actually making the money ourselves. It's very strange. Very, very strange. So anyway, why this would be, like I said, controversial in the Senate is a bit complicated and goofy. Basically what this does, though, to give you an idea, it does do quite a bit against China. It says, let's see, it does actually explain it. I don't care about that. So, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is the SPR, the storage capacity on it, I don't know why that just happened, that was given by Congress to the feds, obviously, the storage capacity maximum is 713. It contained 638 million barrels when Biden was inaugurated. Since taking office, he's released a bunch of shit. It is now down to, as of early January 2023, 371.5 million barrels. That's nuts. He basically depleted half of our SPR. And it's like, why did he do it? Everybody knows why he did it. To attempt to control prices, which is not why the SPR exists. It's for like very important things, like wartime. If things really happened here in the United States where shit went down, we use a lot of barrels of oil a day, like way too many. It's unfathomable that was even a thought to have happened. And what doesn't make sense to me, well, it does, because Democrats were in control of it at the time, is why people didn't stop him or something. Like, Congress could have stepped in and prevented that from happening. I can't foresee them not being able to, since they're the one who congressionally authorized it to begin with in existence. So, but like I said, Democrats were in charge at the time. So anyway, what this bill does, if I can find it, does quite a bit. Please hold. Please hold. Okay. Millions of barrels, blah, blah, blah. President Joe Biden, lawmakers. Okay. Where was it? It was so easily found earlier. Okay, here it is. The one-page bill known as Protecting America's Strategic Petroleum Reserve from China Act, which, by the way, Congress has created a China committee, which should be very interesting. And I'm going to try and hunt that down to watch stuff if they decide to put a webcast in there. And they should, and I'm assuming they will, but, when stuff first starts up, who knows? It says, would prohibit Department of Energy from drawing down the SPR to sell the oil to any entity under the ownership, control, or influence of the Chinese Communist Party, and also bars the export of oil reserved from the SPR to China. It was introduced by Rep. Carthy McMorris Rogers, Republican from Washington, who chairs the House Energy Commerce Committee in the 118th. And it also, if it says in here, it might have been in a different article, it also bars, and it's like case-by-case basis, any company that may have or could have or has in the past had some sort of ties to the Chinese Communist Party or China in general, including their stocks and stuff, that are here, that are U.S. companies. It actually prevents them, like I said, case-by-case basis, from them doing anything too. And that there's a whole other situation regarding the United States actually barring firms here in the United States, as much as they can, from exporting chips and things like that would have to do with national security, that supercomputers, those types of things they could make in China, sophisticated military equipment. The United States recently did that. Chinese government had a hissy fit. That's the same thing. It's going to be case-by-case basis, and every company who specifically does deal with China in any possible way is banned from doing any trading with them. So that pissed off China, and they actually went to the World Trade Organization, I think that's off, and are bitching about it. And so that's going to go to litigation, I'm sure, because the United States and China are not going to come to an agreement of doing that. And apparently the World Trade, whatever the fuck, think it's organization, usually sides on, apparently, according to things I've read, on countries that have trading restrictions on exports that have to do with national security. So it sounds as though China will not be getting what they want anyway. But beside the point. So, U.S. and Taiwan hold trade talks in a move blasted by China. This came out today. And so this is actually what popped up on my phone. So I just started looking at stuff like that House bill passed January 12th. Okay. So this is the 15th. Then I'm going to read something a little bit and talk about the blockade of Taiwan by China could cost the world economy over $2 trillion, which these days, $2 trillion really doesn't seem like a lot of money, does it? But there's a lot more to this, especially in this article that is so interesting how this company basically states, you know, whatever this research firm is, I'll go into it, Rodham Group, you know, it's incalculable of how this would really work out. So the $2 trillion is really a joke. And then December 26th, so this is a little bit back, China sends 71 warplanes, 7 ships towards Taiwan in 24 hours. And that had to do with, believe it or not, this was interesting. This is why I brought it up. The reason they did this, apparently, is because China expressed anger at Taiwan relation provisions in a U.S. annual defense spending bill that they passed last year. Apparently, what it did, let's see. It didn't even do much, actually. This was cute. This was really cute. The official who was not authorized to be identified and commented on a condition of anonymity, said, quote, the United States has an abiding interest in peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. We will continue to assist Taiwan in maintaining a sufficient self-defense capability in line with our long-standing commitments and consistent with our One China policy. And I found that interesting that it was some random ass official, who knows who that is or if it even exists, because the One China policy, it was really hard to get out of Biden that's what the United States stance was. So that was interesting. But anyway, what this basically did in the defense spending bill was to, what do you call it? Like, I remember reading some of it when it came out, basically giving money for specifically to Taiwan for their security defense systems. It wasn't really giving them weaponry or anything. Like, again, giving them money, giving everybody money for them to defend themselves. It wasn't like this administration, the way they approach war is very wrong and interesting. Because they go on the side of defense, right? Like with Ukraine for the longest time until most recently, and even then they're still teeter-tottering on this, is they're, excuse me, they're giving Ukraine, we'll use Ukraine as an example because Taiwan's getting the same situation now, money to defend themselves with weaponry that are defenses, right? So air missile defenses, surface to air type of situations. Now we're giving them a Patriot, which is very interesting because originally we said we weren't going to do that. So I'm not sure what changed about that. And Kirby and also the Pentagon, Secretary of Defense Austin did not comment on what changed. So anyway, so we're specifically stating even out loud, that we're not going to try and provoke situations. So we're not giving any type of military equipment or facilitating or giving money to specifically, as if we're auditing the shit, to any type of weaponry that would be offensive, right? So God forbid someone attack Taiwan or, Russians continue to attack Ukraine, that they attack back, right? Good luck. You're on your own for that shit, right? As if we, like I said, audit this stuff. So anyway, going back to this U.S.-Taiwan hold trade talks. This was kind of interesting to a degree. This is a second round. The initial round was in November. But China's pissed off about it. Basically, what they were talking about is as the U.S. and Taiwan reach agreements in some areas, the two sides may announce standalone deals on those subjects for which the Taiwanese officials called an early harvest, as momentum builds toward a broader trade agreement. Two areas that have proven more challenging between the U.S. and Taiwan, agriculture and digital trade, are likely to take a longer negotiation. However, the talks will focus on proposed deals covering anti-corruption standards, big whoop, trade by small and medium businesses, regulatory practices, trade facilitation, and the Chinese officials basically accuse the Americans of wrongdoing. And then it says in here in the background, just to let you know, the PRC regards Taiwan as a rogue breakaway province, although it has never ruled the democratic, self-governing island nation since the Chinese Communist Party seized control of the mainland in 1947, following a 22-year civil war. Chinese leader Xi Jinping, saying it wrong, we'll just say Xi, and other senior CCP officials have repeatedly declined to rule out the use of force to bring about Taiwan's reunification with the PRC. So they're kind of on their own, right? Taiwan's been on their own for a while, but look what happened to Hong Kong, you know? I mean, we really didn't do much when that shit happened, did we? So anyway, this situation where they were actually going to longstanding policies was called the Taiwan Relations Act, which has to do with America's unofficial diplomatic relationship with Taiwan, that the one China policy that recognizes a dispute between the PRC and Taiwan basically exist. But the trade talks, held under U.S.-Taiwan Initiative on 21st Century Trade is what they named it, which encompasses 11 trade areas, including that are focused on this negotiating round, other matters by initiative, including labor and environmental standards, whoop-de-doo, and addressing trade distortions caused by state-owned enterprises. That's actually gets really in-depth, and I read some of that, or read more deep into that. I researched it, and it just hurts my brain. Not even worth talking about, because it probably won't even come about. So anyway, it says the Office of U.S. Trade Representative did not immediately respond for request comment on this story. So if China were to do this, the blockade of Taiwan by China could cost the world economy over $2 trillion. Again, $2 trillion. We spent that, you know, within like 6 months. Anyway, so this company, Rodham Group, a think tank that I love, a bunch of jackasses that sit around and think about stuff, that analyzes economic data and specializes in research related to China, recently released a report on potential disruptions to the global economy, which their team categorized as conservative and partial estimate of the partial economic impact. Rodham's researchers noted, unsurprisingly, we find the scale of the economic activity at risk of disruption from a conflict in the Taiwan Strait is immense. Well over $2 trillion in a blockade scenario, even before factoring international responses or second-order effects. And and it says catastrophic impact. This is what the big situation is, and everybody knows this about Taiwan, is the chips, right? I didn't realize the capacity, though. I knew it was high, but I didn't know it was 92%. Rodham's report found the primary economic disruption will result from Taiwan being cut off from global trade, given the major role Taiwan plays in the semiconductor supply chains. Of course, we all knew about that and know about that, which is why we should be defending Taiwan, putting some of our military over there and kind of pushing back. But beside the point, according to some estimates, Taiwan produces 92% of the world's most advanced computer chips, which, by the way, goes into a lot of military situations and computers that would be supercomputers. Anyway, to 1/3 to half of the less sophisticated chips that play a critical role in manufacturing processes, like things like cars, no big deal, smartphones, that would be hilarious, and PCs, that would be a problem. So anyway, it does say a rough conservative estimate of dependence on Taiwanese chips suggests the companies in this industry would be forced to forego as much as 1.6 trillion in revenue annually in the event of a blockade. Well, I really don't care what they're losing. I'm more caring about the product they're not able to produce. But beside the point, they also said the second order effects that hit industry reliant on Taiwanese chips. Quote, ultimately, the full social and economic impact of a chip shortage of that scale are incalculable, but they would be catastrophic. I don't know why that keeps happening. Yeah, it would be absolutely catastrophic if that shit happened. Again, I'm not really concerned about people losing money, is not being able to, and not talking about getting a new phone, but having some serious issues that would break down society because we are so dependent on technology these days. I mean, think about everything that has a chip in it. Like, everything has a fucking chip in it. Anyway, so it says a blockade of, and this is what's more interesting, is the effects of the blockade besides Taiwan having the issue. Taiwan by China would likely trigger a sell-off by investors holding Chinese equities trading on U.S. capital markets, similar to what transpired in the lead-up to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Rodham noted that $775 billion in Chinese securities held in U.S. markets as of September 2022. Hundreds of billions of dollars would imperil and sell off, could prompt the CCP to implement capital controls to trap foreign investments in China like those deployed in Russia in 2022. And then it says some more investment bullshit, like I don't care. There was some more interesting shit that had to do with actual shipments. Taken together, our estimates suggest the global disruption from the Taiwan conflict would put well over $2 trillion in economic activity at risk, even though factoring the impact on international sanctions or a military response. This note offers a look at some of the likely disruption channels in a blockade scenario, and this figure should be regarded as a floor. The full scope of the imperiled activity would surely be greater. But it does talk about the straits somewhere in here. And I was like, oh, God. Here you go. The Taiwan Strait is a critical role for vessels traveling between China, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. About half of the global fleet of container ships and 90% of the world's largest ships by tonnage passed through the waterway in 2021, per the Wall Street Journal. So, it should be noted that if a blockade is technically it is technically, if they blocked it, technically an act of war under international law. Although it is uncertain whether countries around the world would treat it as such if China attempted to blockade Taiwan. Rodham's analysis didn't take into account potential military escalation of a China-Taiwan conflict beyond a blockade. So that's some interesting shit, right? If they just decide to fuck with the waterways, that'd be a big problem too, wouldn't it? So China dealing with Taiwan in any way, I mean, is really ugly, and it shouldn't have even gotten to this point, because we do have I can't remember the name of it. I have to look it up. There is a United States-Taiwan agreement, so it's not anything binding, basically saying that we would defend Taiwan if they were attacked. And that was something that was brought up in a press conference a while back by a reporter from some random place when he was overseas. And all this stuff kind of came to head a little bit after Ukraine got invaded. And he was directly asked, do you plan on enforcing that agreement? And his dumbass walked it back later. His administration walked it back later, I should say. And his press secretary, who sucks ass, who checked boxes and looks like a dumbass when she speaks, walked it back for him as well. But he said that, yes, we would indeed defend Taiwan militarily. So, of course, if China invaded Taiwan under this presidency in the next 2 years, it would, I mean, China invading Taiwan at any time is going to be ugly. But China, the likelihood, let's go to that point. I think it's very likely China will eventually do it. It's just depending on the timing, of course, right? I mean, Russia waited to invade Ukraine till Trump was out of office. That was obvious. Very obvious. I mean, anyone with a brain knows that. So it's strategic, right? And there isn't much time left with this administration. And since this administration's starting to go under to... Not go under. Well, yeah, they're going under. But starting to get more scrutiny because the Republicans, GOP, have taken over Congress. Well, the House. Not Congress, but the House. He's going to be under this administration, and him and his family, especially with his wonderful classified documents recently, going to be under scrutiny. And there could be some ugly consequences. And I really hope they don't try to go through the whole impeachment process with him. They're not going to get anywhere. It's January 15, 2023. This motherfucker has 2 years left. Who knows if he'll even be alive by the end of his fucking term. And we really don't want Kamala. I don't even know what she's doing. She's, diphead. I really expected a lot more out of her. I mean, she turned into a ditz. Seeing her in the Senate, she was a bulldog and she was a bitch. And she had a voice. And somehow, how the fuck do you go from a senator to a VP and lose your voice? Makes no sense. But anyway, so I hope they don't go down that road. But they need to expose a lot of stuff, which is pretty much, I want to say, logical and kind of known by people who think the Bidens are corrupt and have conflicts of interest as it is, and kind of follow the Hunter Biden shit. So it won't be big revelations for many of us out there, but it may be, and even then it could be Russian propaganda or some stupid shit by the left. They're already saying that fucking jackass that's in the Judiciary Committee, what the fuck's his name, Johnson, in the House, said, it's possible documents, these classified documents could have been planted. Okay. That's one of the dumbest things to say because Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, has specifically over and over again, because I've been listening to her dumbass, said that the Biden White House is complying 100%, and they're the ones, the lawyers, that is, are turning over the classified documents. So they're doing it themselves. They're not even saying, they're not questioning that the documents existed or anything of that nature. So Johnson, of course, as normal, is dramatic and out of his fucking mind. So if you hear any type of planting shit, that's just adorable. But yeah, so there's going to be some scandal shit regarding Biden over the next 2 years. And I don't think China's going to want to invade during that time period. Now, when it comes to 2024, unless something really changes in 2024, I don't see them doing it in 2023 again. I don't know. It's kind of like likelihood they will. They will absolutely invade Taiwan. It's just a matter of timing. In 2024, this motherfucker's going to be campaigning. They basically said he's going to be in campaign mode for the next 2 years. Ooh, great. Thanks for helping the economy and everything else, you stupid bitch. But anyway, so okay, you're gonna run for 2024 again, you ancient Alzheimer patient. I swear to God, any Republican, Kermit the Frog should be able to beat this motherfucker in 2024 if he actually runs. But anyway, whoever the GOP puts up better win against this jackass if he does make it. And if that's the case, if for some odd reason Biden gets in for a second term, or the Democrats in general, so because even if he runs, and a lot of people don't seem to understand that, Democrats can put up their own, other Democrats could run against him it is very unprecedented to run against a sitting president. I think it's only happened a couple times in history, and those people lost, I believe. I don't think they ever overcame that. And I think even one of the presidents lost, period, that party lost. But anyway, beside the point, it would be unprecedented, but it would not be illegal. It would not be unknown. I mean, anyone like Petey Poo, who's a dumbass moron. Oh, God, to think that he would even put his hat in the ring. Or a retard from California, what's his name? Gavin Newsom. All these dipshits that have these aspirations to make to the White House. They could go against Biden in a primary, and Biden could lose the primary. And he could end up not being on a ticket. Or because, since he's a sitting president, I think he'd automatically be on the ticket. I take that back. I'd have to look in history. Beside the point. So say Biden gets in for a second term. Or a Democrat gets in for a second term. China, I think, will definitely invade between 24 and 28. If a Republican, a strong Republican, I really like DeSantis. I really do. I've loved him since I saw him in the House. He talk about it. Oh, he is a much more refined and I think strategic thinker than Jordan, House Rep Jordan. But he's got the similar mindset. He come after the same topics the same way, and he was great. He was so great in the House, and I was so hoping and rooting for him to take the governorship of Florida the first time and obviously the second time. But to see him rise as a White House candidate, presidential candidate, I'd really like that, but I don't know if it's his time, if that makes sense. But I'm not sure who else would rise out of the GOP to that level. So we'll have to see where that goes. So, but if a GOP gets in there, in general, I don't think China will invade. But if a strong candidate, like similar to a Trump candidate, and Trump is not going to win, and he better not win the primaries, and he better not be on the ticket. But beside the point, if a candidate similar to him, militarily thinking and otherwise, gets in, China will be waiting out. I mean, you guys have to understand, and I mean, even if you do already, other governments wait the United States out by our political cycles. And that's what's crazy. Our political cycles are so fast, depending on who's in the White House, depending on who's controlling Congress. Because these leaders and these dictators are in office for a very, very long time. Like President Xi I think he just got in his third term, as if that was, democratic. So he's going to be there for quite a while. He's going to outlast the next president, I believe. And, Putin's dumbass has been there forever. I mean, all these dictators, authoritarians, they just wait us out. It's all politics to figure out who's going to be in office and who's going to be in Congress and also who's running the Department of Defense. And Secretary Austin is not a good pick. I didn't like him from the beginning. I was hoping he would not get fucking nominated. Then when he did, I was really hoping he would not get confirmed, and of course he did. He is a train wreck. I fucking hate that guy. And then he is shown to be a train wreck a couple times too in the very beginning of this administration. He has since kind of shut his fucking mouth from saying things. He's kind of quiet nowadays. I think someone told him to shut up. But he is very weak. Very weak. So this whole, our military's weak right now. With recruitment, it's weak. All this wokeness bullshit they're focusing on instead of, fighting, training to fight or anything else, which also includes training on equipment that is important to be on defensive, on a regular basis, like I'll just say systems and things like that. I don't know if that stuff's getting left behind, and it sounds like it could be. So militarily, we are not ready. China's military has been obviously building up. And I'll end this video. When China can build a fucking island, okay? And I said this because it happened under Obama, and I said it then, I'll say it now. When you have an adversary that can build an island out of nowhere and create runways, strips, put installations, military installations on them, train, put satellite equipment for satellite launching and shit like that on a newly made island, not one they took over, not one they found, not some random piece of land that nobody found and all of a sudden it appeared on Earth. When someone can build a motherfucking island and do that, you better watch out. You better watch out. While Xi was doing that under Obama was cutting our defense spending. So it was like, I don't understand what the Democrats are doing here. And yeah, they may be owned by China and all this shit, but in the long term, it's like, if you want to stay in power here in the United States, okay, you have to have a functioning economy. You have to have a functioning military to stay in power, be powerful, all this stuff. Because personal influence and I want to call it money laundering or any of this other bullshit that may be on a global stage is very singular in a sense that it will die out. China will find more powerful people besides you as you age out of the system, if you will. So that's really an individual case-by-case basis. And the Democrats are really, I don't know what they're thinking in a lot of different ways, if they are owned by China as much as it seems to be. Because of that, if the United States goes down, China becomes a superpower. I mean, shit will change. Currencies, everything will change. And we'll just become a turd. I mean, it would be... The United States would have we have so much leverage with stuff in so many ways, and we should have a national security leverage with energy right now, and we don't. But we have so much capability to stay in good standing, and to lose that, you'd lose power, you'd lose influence, you'd lose everything. It's like China would look at you as a peon and move on. So I don't really get the Democrats' thought process. Some of these, Clintons, Obamas, the Soros of the world, those types of situations that are, high up there, influencing the Democrat Party. I don't see their end game by destroying the United States. But it seems like we're on that path. It seems like we are there. Like, it's no joke. It seems as though the last 2 decades have been an experiment on us, the people, not just our country. But we've been this psychological, educational experiment. And because the liberals over 2 decades, and they are reaping what they sow, with the education system, they definitely took over the education system, focused on it. And if you look back in time in the Federal Register, what some of these presidents did and stuff, like under Bush, allowing certain things to go through that the Democrats did. Under Obama, allowing things for him to do certain things to get into the school systems. And now we are churning out retards that are minion sheep, and argue and are focused on social media and not having true careers, trades to fall on. So, and that's important. Trades in this country, being a plumber, being a builder, being, part of the oil industry, those are important economic, keeping the world running situations. And instead, we have dumbed down our population that is coming up, and the other population, the baby boomers, are aging out and dying. So there was really a gap. That not even a gap. There was a minor tweak between my age group and the millennials. Like half the millennials have turned out to be retards, and other half of millennials were kind of in that middle gap of being saved, if you will, from what the liberals were doing to the education system. But it's like a serious experiment. Let's churn out retards that have no ambition, that want to suck on the system and become a welfare state. And what is the benefit of that as a leader, to have your people uneducated, useless, sucking off a government system that will be broken down and unable to even afford it? And then we have open borders now. So it's like they screwed up so bad that the open borders is part of the next experiment. It's like, wow, our people are dumb. We have dumbed them down so far, and they are so lazy. They are not going to contribute to this economy very well. So we need to bring in other people to replace these motherfuckers, which is why they opened the border, right? And more people are pouring in from the other side. And that's what's interesting there. It's that, like I said, it's an experiment, because the people that are pouring over the border, where are they coming from? They are coming from socialist countries, and they have different values that are from the Democrat Party, such as religion. They are for life. They are for principles, hardworking, capitalism. They came from socialism. They fled from socialism. They're not going to want that. So it's like their experiment's blowing the fuck up. It's like they started with an idea, and somewhere along the line, whatever dipshit had the original idea, it got strayed and got warped into something really, really, really woke, if you will. And it just spun out of control. And now they have no control over it. Absolutely no control. And so what did they do? They opened the borders. We have to replace the people that we have, because the people we have suck. And our economy will fall. China will take over. China is so smart in that sense. They keep their people educated. They keep them under control, obviously, but they're well educated. And they are well educated in mathematics. And mathematics have everything to do with anything you touch. I don't care what anyone says, whether it goes from computers to logistics to even building cars, building buildings. I mean, if you want to build a shed, you got to be able to do some math, aren't you? I mean, Chinese people are so smart. They're coming to the United States and getting educated at the best universities that we have left, okay? Getting skills that are actually worthwhile and not like some bullshit degree or major in, I don't know, some gender studies. Ridiculous, absurd, shouldn't even exist education. They're getting the specialty trades. They're getting scientists. They're doing nuclear scientist type stuff. They're getting doctors. I mean, these people are smart. This government is smart. China is a threat. They have controlled their people. They have educated their people. They have trained their people to work for them in a sense of even overseas to spy for them. It's crazy. They have built like a working mechanism the Democrats attempted to do here, but failed miserably because they screwed shit up along the way and allowed people to go way too far with stuff, and went from wanting to control the education system, control the education system and what we were being taught, But what we were being taught ultimately was stupidity rather than what China was doing, which is controlling their education. What they're being taught would be the course, language, even multi-language. There's a lot of bilateral, multilateral Chinese, mathematics, science, those types of things. While we were focusing on stupid shit and whitewashing our history. So it's like the Democrats tried to take a page out of China and fucking, I don't know, they lost the book to begin with or something happened. But China is a big threat in that way too. So I don't know what's going in the United States. Again, I don't know what their end game is. I think they lost control. So China will invade Taiwan, period, depending on where it lies in the next 10 years. Is questionable, and it may end up also depending upon how this Ukraine and Russian war goes down as well, as our politics change over and over again every 2 years. So anyway, this is Are You Ready For It? Take care, guys. Have a great day.